Hello, my juicy co-creators. Lilou here in London with Nassim Haramein. Nassim, hello.
Hi, it's so good to see you again.
Yes, for me too. And this time in London, the first time I interviewed you in Hawaii. We've organized conference for you in Geneva, in Belgium, in France. I mean, people are really getting what you're talking about these days, like nothing before.
Yeah, it's really finally, I think, landing in people that science and spirituality can come together, and that really actually spirituality is science we hadn't understood before.
Yeah.
And so, it's really exciting to see. We see it on the side of the physics community as well. There's a huge opening, starting to, really explore some new ideas in physics, and as well from the people that are more into the consciousness community, starting to understand at deeper level the physics involved and the questions I'm getting, and people really paying attention to what I'm saying in science and in physics. It's remarkable. It's like we're all growing together immensely right now.
We're so thirsty for this knowledge, and it seems like it's a time of revelation. You told me about Jean-Pierre Petit. I went to interview him, and right now this interview with Greg Braden, and there seems to be really we're thirsty for it. We're ready to hear it, and it's being exposed. And there's probably going to be a huge shift in consciousness once those big pieces are really going to come out for a majority of the people.
Right, and it's really like people are coming together as well. Where researchers were independently doing their thing in their corner. We're all starting to come together and connect our networks and, connect our ideas and get the larger picture from everyone bringing their piece. It's like the puzzle is getting laid in front of us, and it produces a beautiful picture. Yeah.
So I want to speak about the ARK crystal, because we've done already several interviews, and I know talking about the science behind the ARK crystals is going to also, of course, lead to many different points, different areas of your own research. So where did this get started? Because I'm wearing it, I feel it. A lot of people feel like we want to know more, because there's amazing feeling around it. And so what's behind?
Well, it started in 1999. Of course, from the physics I was writing, I could see that there would be application, like technological application to the physics I was writing, because if space-time is full of energy, it just stands to reason, and that energy produces all of the material world and consciousness eventually. It's then to reason that you should be able to technologically access that energy and use it for, energy production or motivation or whatever, but as well even for health, right? Although that was not my impetus. I was thinking, I'm gonna tap into this field and produce electrons to, run your house and your car and all this stuff.
So it was an ambitious project to start with.
Oh, for sure, definitely. And the ultimate goal was to actually interact with the structure of space-time, to curve it, to produce gravitational control, to bring humanity to gravitational control. And that is still the impetus of what I do in my laboratory. And it demands very advanced technology and all this. But along the way, in 1999, I noticed that the experiments I was doing was having an effect on biological life, mostly plants. I noticed the plants near the technology I was developing. At the time, it wasn't in a Faraday cage. It was exposed, and I was doing tests. I noticed that the plants around it were behaving strangely. They were growing towards the experiments. Right?
And a huge forest growing all around your house.
Well, yeah, it was like becoming jungle, because they were growing very fast, and they were very healthy, and so I tried to figure out what was going on. Through a set of different events, I came in contact with files of experiments that were done by another researchers a long time before me, where he built something very similar to me. I didn't know at all. These are very rare files, and it was some of the experiments that Walter Russell had done in 1927, and that were tested by Westinghouse laboratories at the time, and they were showing effects on the structure of water and somewhat transmutation of elements and so on. And so I started to think, well, maybe I should check out what my experiment is doing to the water structure. And so I started to do tests where I would put water near the experiment, run the experiment, and then have control, and then send that to independent labs for analysis. And I found profound changes were occurring in the water. And then I realized the plants were behaving strangely because I was changing the water that in their the water content in the plants, and I was changing the water that I was watering the plants with, and so that's why they were behaving strangely. So I started to do tests.
But wait, how do you measure that effect on water, for example?
Well, I was looking at mineral content, but as well as the viscosity of water, the amount of negative ions in the water, so the conductivity of water, the pH, the impedance of water eventually, and all this. So I was doing some deep level analysis of the water to see what is changing and what's happening to the water that makes the plants love the water so much. Because I could see the plants that were getting charged water or modulated water was absorbing all the water, and the plants that were getting the control, the water that was not modified, was not necessarily absorbing all of it. So it was clearly the case that the water that was modulated was becoming more bioavailable for the plants.
Because there's been a lot of different kind of water that's been modified. I mean, this is more and more people have these systems at home that energize them and are. So what's the difference here?
Well, the difference is that this is a passive device. It doesn't require power. It's not tied to a cord that you have to plug into a wall or anything. You can wear it all the time, and your body is made of a large percentage of water. Your brain is a large percentage of water, and so on. So you can wear it, you can drink the water, and so on. So it makes it, in one way, really convenient. But as well, it's energizing the water differently than devices that you have on your countertop would, like where, they're literally embedding negative ions into the water and so on. This does it in a way that is more harmonious with the water structure. It's not so violent to the water structure, and I think it maintains the water in a state. First of all, it's much more stable, so that if you modulate water with your crystal, the water will stay in that state. It's very resilient. It will stay in that state for weeks, if not months, no problem. Where if you do it with electricity, typically the water will stay in that state for a few hours, and then the ions dissipates. So it's different. I think it's more harmonious and natural to biological systems, and as a result, it's easier for the body to absorb it. And so I start to see this. I start to make tests. Over the years, we made thousands and thousands and thousands of tests on plants and various measurements that we were able to do. And in every case, we had a positive result. We never got a negative result or a null result where it didn't do anything or it made the plant worse or anything. We never got that, right? So we always got a positive result, and it was always between 100 to 400% increase in growth rate, 10 times more fruiting, the fruits were bigger, the more seeds were viable, and so on.
So what does that mean for us as human beings then? I mean, if that has that effect on plants, how do you measure the impact on our beingness?
Well, that's harder to measure, on people. It's more complex. We started on these tests now, but we don't have direct result. But it stands to reason that if it makes the water more bioavailable, I mean, literally, getting older, you can think of is dehydrating, right? Your cells are dehydrating. I think at the age of 50, you have 60% less hydration in your body than when you were a teenager. Basically, your cells start to break down because the water structure in your cells and in the interstitial fluids around your cells is the structure is starting to break down. That means that the cell is not able to eliminate as efficiently, it's not able to absorb nutrients as efficiently, and things starts to go sideways. So if we can reestablish high coherency in the water structure in your body, basically we are like reestablishing health. Now, we can see it in the plants. For instance, the plants that get given this type of water are more resistant to pathogens, to molds and all kinds of things, and it makes them more resilient. And we live in a world in which we're constantly bombarded with electromagnetic fields. 4G, 5G is everywhere. We're constantly being bombarded with toxins and so on, chemicals and all this. If we can make our body more resilient, it's very, very important. The other thing is that just recently, so all these measurements were nice, but they were all indirect measurements of the crystal, meaning we could see that by modulating the crystal the way we do, well, it takes 2 years to grow the crystal. Then
What do you mean to grow the crystal?
Oh, the crystal is grown in a laboratory so that we have very, very high purity in the crystal and the crystal metric. We don't want impurities in them because we want to make sure that it's highly coherent, right? And then
how does a crystal grow? Can you explain that?
Oh, well, a crystal is grown in laboratory by it's a highly mineralized solution that's put under very high pressure and high heat, and the crystal naturally grows. It's basically reproducing how crystal grows in nature. It's just in a controlled environment so that that it's high purity. There's no impurities that get involved. And
as well as no information in there, because that's the main feeling with this crystal is that it seems quite neutral, right, which is huge compared to other stones, because other stones give information.
Right. It is. It's like it's very, very pure. It does not have an information metric that you would get in a natural crystal, which comes from the impurities embedding themselves in the crystal as it grows, which can be a good thing if you're looking for a set, an information set. But in this case, we're trying to get something as neutral and pure as possible. And then when we modulate it, then it starts to interact with the structure of space-time, literally, and emit photons. And that's where I was getting to, is that now, in the last few months, we've been able for the first time to directly measure the energy event that the crystal produces. And that's really exciting, because we could tell it was doing something. We knew it was electromagnetic, because if we put the crystal in a Faraday cage and put the water on top of it, we would lose the effect. So we knew it was electromagnetic. Now we can measure it. So we have been able to place the crystal in a very, very dark room inside a Faraday cage. And then, we have a photomultiplier in there. And we take background, measurements to figure out the background photon emission. So there's a little photon that's emitted here and there from a thermal effect of the Faraday cage. So we take a background measurement, And then we put a crystal in there that's cut just like this, but that's not been modulated. And we can see that it stays on background. And then we put one that's been modulated, and it's emitting from each vertices, it's emitting approximately 30 photons a second that are coming out of nowhere. They're coming out of the vacuum, right? And so this proves that I obtained what I was going for in 1999, which was to extract energy from the vacuum. So 100 photons a second approximately, if you take all the vertices and the faces of the crystal, are being emitted every second. And now we've done a second experiment from a third-party researcher that has found a way to actually measure the photonic emission in a different way. And he's done a little video, we might be able to show that, where you can actually, he puts the crystal on the device and you can hear, the photons being emitted, and then he puts one that's not charged and you can't hear anything. So now we have direct measurements of the emission of the crystal from the structure of space-time. And, this is the energy that produces our reality. This is the energy that produces life. So basically, you're embedding life force into the water of your body when you're wearing it, or when you use it to charge your water at night, and you drink it in the morning. You're basically drinking the life force of creation. Yeah.
So when you're carrying it, is that emitting, or is that just, what is your feeling? How would you describe it? Because if we're not machines, obviously.
Right.
So how does it work on the human body? I mean,
well, we're not machines, but in some ways, the human body is mechanical. There's a heart beating, there's a brain running. We have all kinds of electromagnetic systems. There's nervous systems. There's muscle mass and connective tissue, and all this stuff is working in very much high coordination with each other. When you wear the crystal, what happens is that because your water is circulating all the time, your blood is circulating, so your blood is about 20% of the fluids in your body. The rest is interstitial fluids, right? That's connecting all of your cells together and all this stuff, and actually is the most important fluid. I believe, and so does other scientists now, believe that the interstitial fluid is really the most important part of the body health system, and that it's been largely ignored. And we're starting to understand, wow, the blood is an important chemistry to understand, but actually the interstitial fluid, if it gets polluted, if toxins end up in the interstitial fluids and so on, that's what produces, the environment in which tumors can grow and, disease can occur. So when you're wearing the crystal, it's modifying that water. It's making the water structure highly energized and more bioavailable. The water that goes in your cells is picked by the cell one molecule at a time. Okay, the entrance, there's these receptors on the surface of the cell that are admitting water into the inside of the cell, and it's very much a geometric relationship. It's an electric as well relationship of minerals potential between the outside of the cell and the inside of the cell. And the way it's allowing molecules to come across the cell is very specific to recognizing the molecule as a water molecule. Mm-hmm. The problem is that the water we drink today typically has been so modified by our filtration system, by all the chemicals that are in it, by all the hormones that are in it, and all this stuff, that the cells don't necessarily recognize that molecule as something that it will allow in. So you might be drinking massive amount of water, but you're dehydrated at the most fundamental level.
Yeah, so it has an impact on the physical body, hydration and more energy, and but how about on the consciousness? How about on our own awakening as human species? Could you talk about it, or is this a territory where?
Well, it's definitely more esoteric, but over the years since '99, we've done so many different tests with the crystal, and certainly we have all kinds of heuristic connection, evidence that, like events that happen in which people had like really remarkable things happen with the wearing of the crystal. And certainly maybe it's because of the water structure giving you more energy, so that you have more like tendency to be able to like think higher thoughts or something. But people definitely report having more awareness as a result of wearing the crystal, like being more sensitive, being more, like, if you'd like, more psychic, more than before, more sensitive to the environment, and more having a larger awareness about the environment. I mean, we had one case of a CEO that is working in large corporations with like very high tension environment, wearing the crystal, wearing the pendant, and saying, wow, like, I can feel where people are coming from so much better when I wear the crystal, and so it helps me navigate my day in a completely different way. And after you wear it for a while, at first when you start wearing it, it can be a little bit too much, and then you gotta
have a bit of headache sometimes.
Right, because
time to adjust.
It's time to adjust, and as well it's detoxification, right? Because the toxin that are in your water, in your interstitial fluid, may end up, giving you a little bit like tiredness at first and headaches and stuff like that. And then eventually it gets good, and then you can wear it more. At first we recommend to wear it only an hour or two, see how you feel, and then, taking it off and so on. But eventually you can wear it full time. And then what happens is, if you forget to wear it, you go, oh my God, like you're going through your day and you're going, why am I feeling this way? You're not feeling so great. And then you go, oh, I forgot to wear my crystal. So it's really useful.
Yeah, there's less, it's like less chaos. It's strange to say, because people have a hard time to express how they feel, and at first I wanted to try it without any of this information, and that's why I hold off interviewing you on this topic to experience it, because I think we have to also feel it for ourselves, and not just be influenced by what others are saying.
Right.
And there's this feeling of that the peacefulness, and it harmonizes the field, or there's something. It's not like more energy either. It's not less energy. It just is. There's this presence.
Right. It's like it almost is, and certainly when I run the main device that charges them, that modulates them, it almost feels like the structure of space gets thicker. It gets more tangible.
But not dense, lighter, but more present.
More present, more you have more access to it. You feel it more, and it smooths things out and kind of like keeps everything mellow in some way.
Yes, more mellow, but at the point zero, I have done some interviews on the 0 point, and it feels like more like that. Instead of having those ups and downs, there's something more smooth. And so you can imagine, basically, we're making little points of entry
for the structure of space to express itself in our reality. And so when you have the crystal, and we have as well the way we manufacture them, they can be snapped together into larger structures.
I wanted to talk to you about that.
Yeah.
That must be amazing.
Oh yeah, we made 64, and then we made 512 crystals together in a large structure that when you're in the room with that, you can definitely feel the structure of space is highly viscous. It's amazing. You can feel it, and it's powerful.
And we adapt to that? Like, it's not too strong, or we just, how quickly can we adapt?
Well, we adapt to it. Like, you can have different reactions. When we put the 512 together, which was just recent, we were with 500 people approximately in an event that we set up in 1440 in Santa Cruz, California, and some people just broke down in tears, and it just released so much stress and so much, it just like totally, like they felt the energy so strongly. It just released so much out of their bodies. Some others would like get really joyous, and so different reactions. But certainly, basically, we're starting a whole new world of technology, because okay, now we can measure it's emitting photons. Okay, it's only a question of time till I can get them in a state where they're emitting electrons as well. So, eventually those little crystals will be running your house, they'll be running your car, they'll be, and as a result, as you're running your daily technology, you're getting healthier, you're living longer, all these things become possible.
You have access to better thoughts, let's say.
Yeah, maybe higher thoughts, because I've shown that the structure of space-time doesn't just create the material world, the protons, the electrons, the planets, the stars, the galaxies, but it actually is as well the source of the information that we call consciousness. So it's like we're putting more consciousness, right? More information in the field. So yeah, maybe we'll access higher thoughts and more deeper, profound understanding of reality and ourselves.
There is not only, right now we wear it as a pendant, but I'm hearing, so what you're saying is that it can be many other things. Like right now is like this has this titanium structure. You put it in, you can take it out.
Yeah, you can take it out. You can put
Yours is purple.
Yeah,
not fair.
Well, we'll put them on the market purple eventually, but you can put it on your nightstand at night, and actually that's the most important part of using the crystal, is to actually charge your water with it. You can put little.
How do you do that? Just
so there's an orientation to the crystal. It's cut on a very specific axe. So there's a little arrow on the crystal, and you point it upward, and then you put little blocks around it. And we're manufacturing a water bottle soon that you'll just be able to snap it in and put water in there. But for now, you just put little blocks around it, put your water jug on top of it, and just leave it there overnight. And when you wake up in the morning, drink that water, and it will energize your body, and it's very powerful water. So then then you can wear it for the rest of the day, and that's why we put it in a pendant, so you could wear it for the rest of the day with you. But
masculine pendant, by the way. Hopefully you'll do something more feminine. I put it underneath my clothes.
Yeah, it is a little bit masculine, a little big. We are working on making a lighter one that's much smaller as well. So that's on its way. And we are as well working on making smaller crystals. Already this size was very difficult to manufacture. That's why it took me from 99 till last year until I was able to put it on the market, because I could only make a few crystal a month before, because the precision they have to be made of.
You mean, how do you make them?
Well, after they're grown, then they have to be cut. And cutting crystal in this configuration, in this geometry, with high level of precision, with the specs that we were requiring, was not possible until a few years ago. The machines to do that could not do that, and holding it. So the crystal geometry and dimensions is tuned to the dimension of the Planck field, of the structure of space-time. There are harmonics, and so the crystal has to be cut very precisely. Otherwise, it's in the wrong harmonics. It won't oscillate, and so. And when we modulate the crystal, we modulate under that specific harmonics. So it has to be the right geometry and the right size. If it's off a little bit, then it won't work. So
each of them are measured once they're created, I guess.
Yes, they're measured very precisely, and they have to pass very precise, tests. And then we modulate them. And so at this point, we can make approximately 500 to 1,000 crystal a month, but until recently that was not possible, so I couldn't put them on the market. So it's very recent that we can do that. But basically,
they're high on demand. People love it.
Oh yeah, people love it. But basically, this is the baby step. Yeah. This is the first step. Yeah. There's going to be much more technology coming behind it. For instance, we have a tetrahelix that's coming, which is a little device where the crystals are placed together. When you put tetrahedron face to face with each other, they make the helix that is very similar to the DNA strand. And so we've put that in a device where the water can flow through it. And so you can put it in your main in your house and then have all the water in your house charged.
When is that coming out?
That's hopefully coming out in the next 6 months. Wow. Yeah, so we're really excited about that. And clearly, I'm going towards energy production and gravity control.
What is that for? Tell us a bit the timeline.
Well,
just so that we realize how quickly this can go now, because it seems like it took you a long time to get there, but now it's like...
Yeah, now it's moving fast because finally the technology required is available, and, and we're getting at least help financially to do the research, which is expensive, very expensive. So and we need more help. More of the resource we get, faster we can go, and it's really important that we get there on time because we're facing in our world, as you know, very significant challenges with our environment and so on. We have to have better solutions. So energy production and gravity control, I would say energy production within the next 5 years for sure. Gravity control maybe as well. Very, very close in those years, between 5 and 7 years. We will have the first evidence of gravity control. That is the capacity to control the gravitational field so that we can create things that levitate, so that we can move off planet.
Interstellar travel,
but at least solar systems travel, right? Interplanetary travel, so that we can, go into our solar system, get resources, remove the burden of the Earth to maintain, all of our needs as a society.
Are we all ready for this? I mean, what does this mean if it gets in the wrong people's hand that are not, for the good?
Well, I think that at this point, more and more people around the world are realizing, people that are even, inside military industrial complex, inside the agencies, inside the government, people are realizing more and more, okay, we got to work together, because we're under serious crisis and we have very little time to turn our society around so that we become harmonious with nature. And so I'm very optimistic that there is a big impetus, even from governments and so on, to get to these new level of technologies so that we can transcend the difficulties we're under. Now that doesn't mean it's gonna get it's gonna be easy, or that it's not gonna be opposition. But I'm confident that we will get there in the next, maybe next decade, within 10 years, right?
I don't feel you've been stopped by any other parties.
There is some resistance, and we have to be careful. But and at the same time, we're really, there's not really any other choice. We have to move forward. There's no slowing down. There's no, saying, well, it's too dangerous, whatever. We have to get it done. There is no other choice. So this is an opportunity for everybody to get involved. And more people get involved, safer it gets for everybody, and more industry and financial structure gets involved. More we have resources, safer it is, and more chance we get to put it on the market and get it out, right? So it's really important for people to get involved. It's really important, whether it's like just mentally and participating and getting involved with the delegate program, or going to conferences, the conferences you put up, and growing within themselves and becoming more and more aware, or whether it is participating financially, buying crystal, whatever, like, or financing research labs that are doing this kind of research. I mean, it's critical at this time. We're at the 11.9 hour, right? And there's literally 1 minute to go for our world to turn around and do something different. It's critical.
Some people would like to get a crystal, but they can't afford it. We have to answer that question, because it's like, I'm sure you want it to be, since energy is free, you want it to be accessible to as many people as you can.
Yeah, I know. I wish it was not as expensive to produce them. But like I said, the technology is so at the fine edge of what can be produced. It's extremely costly to produce the crystals. So they're not cheap. They're expensive in some ways. Considering what you're getting, actually, they're actually very, very cheap. But the
future, how do you see that to make it more available? Or is there some countries? I mean, I see some companies that actually give some away to some other countries or other people that need it, like Africa or wherever, so that it facilitates, and other people that have the resources pay for.
Yeah. We're planning on doing all kinds of sponsorship programs and supporting people so that people that cannot afford it can get one, and all this stuff, like, that's in the works. We're trying to find ways to reduce the cost and make it more affordable for people. It really, we're trying to find ways to get it into the public more and more. But certainly anybody that can afford it should get one, because more we put them out there. Remember, each one is, and we can measure it now, each one is inputting into our world more photons. You can think of it literally as more light is coming into your body, into your world. And more of the crystals we put out, more light we're putting around the world. And literally it's like a little grid of light that develops around the world and that is a big contribution, right? And so it's in one way we are, the people that can get them are supporting the people that cannot, because we are putting more energy, more light into our world.
So when we wear it, we're not talking of a field outside of ourselves. So that, like, here we're both wearing it, so it has an impact to that building over there, for example, or it's more, as you said, on a molecule level.
Yeah, it's more localized, of course. The reach of the photons that are emitted or it has a certain limit, like it makes a bubble around it that in which the field is affected. But what happens is that because you're connected to the morphogenetic field of the whole planet, and because the crystal is connected to the morphogenetic field of the whole planet, it's like it's got a little more energy globally, right? More and more crystals we put out. So it's powerful.
If you haven't seen, by the way, the documentary on Nassim called Connected Universe, please see it, because we understand better too how we are all interconnected, and how if we better ourselves, let's say, then we help others too.
Yeah, exactly. And it makes a big difference. Like I said, this is just a start, the baby steps. There's going to be more and more powerful technology coming out. And it really is going to make a difference when we get to the point where the technology is, able to bring us to this other way of interacting with the world. And this other way of interacting with the world is to understand that space and time is not empty, that you're floating, you're literally inside the flow of creation, right? Everywhere you are, like you're embedded into this energy, and that you can interact with it and engineer it and modify it. And that makes a big difference in your life, because energy is not something that's from the outside, or information is not something that's only from the outside, but it's from the inside as well. It's from within you that you're connected through this. And the crystals, they help you feel that at a deeper level. Your body feels it at a deeper level, and your consciousness can start to quantify, and as well have a direct experience of the field. And the tests we're doing are helping, because when you can see the photons are coming out of it, right? And they're coming out of the vacuum, because in the dark room inside the Faraday cage there's no other photons, and the photons are coming out of the crystal, right? They're coming out of the structure of space. Now if you or when you hear them on that little device that was done by this independent, you can hear that the device is producing energy. So this as well makes it real in your consciousness, that this is really happening, and this is where reality is going.
Often people ask, so can we need to recharge it? But then the answer is no, right? Because it's constantly pulling the energy.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like the crystal has been imbued with a charge, like a battery, and it runs out, right? The crystal is just a conduit for the energy that's already present, the energy that's in the space. So it's not like it can run out. It won't run out. The only thing that can happen is if you crack it, right? Or because then the conduit is affected, or if you boil it, then the molecules in the crystal go amorphous, and then it's affected again. So, and then it's not a good conduit. So
you can put it in a hot bathtub.
You can put it in a hot bathtub. You can go in, typically like the hot tubs, or you could go to, or the natural hot spring is still okay. But if you bring it up to boiling temperature, then it becomes a problem. But as well, I mean, it really is so that, like, if you don't do any of these things, like crack it or boil it, it will continue to be a conduit. I don't know how long, because we have modulated some in 99 that we can see are still active just as much as they were then, and they don't seem to have entropy across time. Now, maybe in a few hundred years, maybe in a few thousand years, it would decohere, and you might have to remodulate it to get it to, be a good conduit again. But we don't know that. However, most likely, if you take good care of it, it most likely will last for the rest of your life. Now, that's why as well I put it in a titanium metric, because actually there's some 32 pieces of different parts in this little saddle here. And it's engineered so that the crystal is suspended inside, micro silicone bumpers, so that you can drop it, because that was another concern when I started to produce them. It's like, well, when you drop it, typically it will crack because it's fragile, or you might get micro cracks that you can see, and so on. And so for me, it was important that it would be robust. And so by putting it into this titanium saddle, you can throw it against the wall, and typically it won't chip, it won't crack. So it's very resilient now, and titanium is good because it's non-reactive to many fluids. You can put it in water. Although you don't need to. You can charge the water from across the glass is fine. If the water is in metal, then it's harder for the crystal to charge the water. So it's better that it's non-conductive material like glass or ceramic or even plastic, although the plastic might outgas into the water. So I recommend either glass or ceramic.
How about the impact of this in the oceans? I know you surf. You probably want your ocean to be as pure as possible.
Right. With the tetrahelix, we're really excited to put it on the market as well, because then there's going to be a lot more charged water happening. So imagine, so that you put this device, you're going to put it in your main, in your house, or you might put it at your tab or whatever. But if you can imagine, it's going to charge all the water in your house. But as well, when you use the water is going to go down the drain into the sewage system and down to eventually, the ocean. And we are as well starting to manufacture some that are for agriculture, so for commercial use, because if you can grow plant 4 times faster and they make 10 times more fruits, and they are more resistant to pathogen, that means you don't have to use so much pesticides and so on. That would be really, really good. So we're making these devices as well. We're engineering them right now. Eventually that water ends up in the ocean. We as well are planning on making plants that have the tetrahelix devices in there. We're just running water through it and dumping it in rivers that are going to the ocean, or dumping it directly in the ocean to charge the structure of the ocean, to charge the water for a whole planet, which is really like the veins of our planet. It's really like the water is like the blood of our planet, and the blood has been corrupted by all of the toxins we've put in it. So we might be able to actually bring the water back to its highest state, its natural state.
Well, thank you, Nassim, for this discovery, for all your work, for this delicious interview. Happy to share this with the world. Please share this video, and for all of you guys that have already the crystal, hopefully that has answered a lot of the questions. And it's exciting. I'm excited about everything that is going on for you and for the world right now. There's a lot of amazing discoveries, and so many beautiful things are happening. There's a lot of reasons to be very optimistic about our future. Thank you, Nassim. And we'll see you very soon online and in conferences, and you're all over the place. Take good care of yourself, of your health. You're always running around.
Thank you. Yeah, I know. I got to keep my life in balance. It's always a challenge. But luckily, with the crystals and everything I do, and the people's energy, it's amazing to see the transformation in people. When the lights come on, when they get this, it's powerful. And so it's keeping me going. So thank you for all of you out there. It's wonderful to be able to connect.
Thank you, Nassim. Big kiss, all delicious co-creators. Bye-bye.